Okay, so I'll just share the links to you right now. I'm
Yes,
just getting.
they're asking me. They're like, "Where's the link?"
Okay. Mm, copy. Okay.
Are you sharing those on LinkedIn with me or here in the chat?
On LinkedIn.
Okay. There you go.
Then, okay. Okay. So, yeah.
What is the second
Yeah.
link for LinkedIn? Well, I'll try to
That's
share.
Facebook.
Yes, I just shared the one on Facebook. I think that's gonna be enough for them.
Okay. 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 So, thank you so much for coming to my podcast. It's called WELLSPIRE, and we talk about real life situations here, what people tend to avoid. I think last week we had a discussion on childhood trauma and how to overcome childhood trauma, and we had some very important speakers. We had Kenny and we had Sobuhi, who is a trauma and resilience life coach. And Kenny is an assistant clinical psychologist, and they really brought some insight. And then the week before that, we had a talk on pornography addiction as well. And yeah, it was really an interesting conversation. Yeah. So, and a program that was supposed to last for like an hour, it lasted for an hour 40 minutes because the questions were just coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. Yeah.
Because those are topics that you usually don't bring to
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Why
And
people
then
have
our
many.
next, yeah, and our next topic is going to be on pregnancy loss. So how
Hmm.
people deal with loss, how people deal with miscarriages, and how people deal with not having children as well. So society tends to ignore that. So we want to talk about it so people have a platform to um, express their hurts, express how they feel, express and tell people what to say and what not to say to people at a certain point in their lives. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Priscilla Agokabo, and I'm the founder of WellSpa, an organization dedicated to promoting wellness and inspiration. And today, I am delighted to welcome you all to an important discussion about premenopause unfiltered. So, we are going to be breaking the silence and raising awareness. Don't forget, premenopause is a natural phase of life, yet is often misunderstood or overlooked. From mood swings to sleep struggles, the journey can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be lonely. So it is time to have an open, honest conversation about premenopause, challenge the stigma, and support one another through knowledge and awareness. So let's break the silence together with Lizabeth Leach. She is the founder of Premenopause School, a certified transformational mindset coach, an advocate for women's health and education, and she has demonstrated a firm knowledge in closing the knowledge gap on premenopause. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to
Thank you for
WELLSPIRE.
inviting me.
Thank you so much. So we do a little bit of question and answer, but do you want to give us a brief rundown about yourself, what you do, so we get to know you better?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very happy to be here with you and to be able to open this conversation, which needs to be had. Like, we really have to talk about perimenopause openly, and women have to have a place where they can ask questions and their questions get answered. And that is lacking so much right now. So about me, a little bit about me. I am, like you said, a certified transformational mindset coach. I am an EFT tapping practitioner. And a few years ago, I was completely focused on helping women transform their emotional struggles into personal growth with the use of self-coaching. I was in the process of creating a digital course all about self-coaching for women who wanted um, to become the best version of themselves using holistic techniques like EFT tapping. Um, and then perimenopause hit me hard. And it completely disrupted my life, and I had to stop working. And I will
Oh,
tell you the story a little bit later.
okay.
And after that, it took me about a year. I pivoted and I decided, because I struggled so badly, that I decided that no woman has to go through what I went through. And I know that this is a struggle that millions of women around the world are currently going through without
Yeah,
much support, without much knowledge. So I decided that I would advocate on this and I would educate women as the best as I can. I'm not a physician, I'm not a doctor, but I researched so much in order to heal myself, in order to improve my own symptoms, that I now have so much knowledge when it comes to perimenopause. That, and I also decided to get a certification on perimenopause and menopause, which is something that I am currently doing. And in the meantime, I decided to create Perimenopause School, which is the first online platform fully dedicated to the education, support, and raising awareness around the topics that have to do with perimenopause. And it's on its very early stages. If you visit the Instagram account that I set up for it, it doesn't have much information because it's very, very recent. But the CSW 69, it opened a door for me to bring this to the world. And what better moment than right now to talk about this?
yeah. Wow. I didn't know premenopause would be this. I thought it's just a phase, like, when you're starting your period and then it just goes and then you get used to it. I didn't know you have to stop work because of that. Wow.
Yes.
I'm so glad to have you on board, So you have to educate us and you use your own life experiences to talk about it, which is a very good thing. Yeah.
Yes, it's funny that you mentioned like when you get your period, because that is something that has stuck, it's stuck in my mind. The memory of when I think I was around 11 years old, and a lady came into my class to give us a lecture on what was going to happen to the girls when we started menstruating. So she came with her little kid with one pad and a little booklet where they were explaining what is menstruation and what you have to do and all that. And it was like, you have to wait for it to happen, and when you happen, you are a young woman and you're going to be able to have children, da da da. And that was it. And I never heard anything related to reproduction until I was maybe 15, or like at education wise, when I was 15 years old. And then I had, sex education at school, but it lasted maybe a couple of hours at the most. And that was it. And then nothing else until a couple of years ago. I'm now 49. I turned 49 in February. And perimenopause hit me 2 years ago. So I was 46, 47 when it happened. And I didn't know it existed. And I know that that is the reality of many women that are not aware that perimenopause exists.
Yeah.
That's why we need to have this conversation, because women need to know that this happens and it's normal and it's not all negative, but it's
Yeah.
something that women need to know.
Okay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So our first question is, if you could describe premenopause in 3 words, what would that be?
I would say is a misunderstood life transition.
Misunderstood life transition. Interesting. Why would you say that though?
Because there is a lack of knowledge right now, and those who know about it don't really understand it because don't know it widely. And it's a life transition because perimenopause is the transition between your reproductive years and when you stop your reproductive years. So it's a transition of being fertile to stop being fertile, and that happens with the fluctuation of your sex hormones. They're referred to as sex hormones, but those hormones don't are not just sex hormones. They are hormones that affect different functions in your body and your brain.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. So, you mentioned that you started a premenopausal school. So, aside your experiences, I would say that you saw a gap in the society that led you to this creation. Am I correct to say that?
Yes, yes, because what happened to me, and let me just tell you my story. What actually happened to me that led to me deciding to create perimenopause school. So I was having a normal life, working, and it had been a couple of years that I had been experiencing symptoms, different symptoms that I had no idea what they were. So maybe one period of my life I had I don't know, like very heavy periods. And I was like, why is this happening? I would go to see the doctor and they would be like, no, that's normal because after you have children, that tends to happen, which is not the case because not all women have heavy periods, but they never told me exactly why I was having those heavy periods. So I went on like that for years without really knowing, and that was one of the perimenopausal symptoms that I was going through. Other symptoms that I had were like really bad headaches that I never used to have in the past, and they just started happening out of nowhere. I went to see the doctor. They were like, "Oh, are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? Are you stressed?" And this and that, and all questions. But because perimenopausal symptoms are so wide and so similar to other, like they could be linked to many conditions, they are often
Yeah.
like they're confused with other things. So anyhow, so for many years I had different type of symptoms, like one here, one there. But then all of a sudden, when I was going through a very busy time in my life, being a mom and uh, being working as an entrepreneur, being an expat, all these things. And boom, one day I started having really bad anxiety that I never had in the past. And now I am a person, I am a certified transformational mindset coach. And what I do is work with holistic practices like meditation, emotional management, stress management, and different type of practices like yoga that help you with controlling and managing your stress levels. So for me, having that anxiety in that moment didn't make any sense. But it was so bad, and it was so like there was so much uncertainty in me that it caused me to have panic attacks. And then the panic attacks caused me to have heart palpitations. Or actually, it was the other way around. I started having heart palpitations that led to me having panic attacks because I had no idea what was going on with me. And the heart palpitations were so bad that I panicked. I didn't know what was going on. So I went to see doctors, and I ended up in the ER three times, three different times in a period of a year and a half.
Wow.
They took me in an ambulance once because I thought that I was having a heart attack because I
Yeah.
was having heart palpitations, and I went by myself to the ER twice, and all three times I was told that I was too stressed, that I had to relax, that I had to do something to lower my stress levels, and I was even given Xanax at one point. They just gave it to me. They didn't tell me what it was. I thought that it was going to lower the blood pressure because I thought that I had high blood pressure. And what they did is that they gave me Xanax to calm me down, and they told me afterwards. And that really made me mad because they didn't even tell me what they were giving me. And they immediately assumed that it was all stress related, which it wasn't. Because one thing that I do all the time regularly is EFT tapping, which is a technique where you work with meridians in your body to
Yeah.
lower the production of cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone, the stress hormone. So for me, that didn't make any sense. Um, so anyhow, that moment, I had to completely stop working for about 3 months. My husband had to take time off from work. He had to take care of my kid, our kid at home. He had to take him to school, and he had to cook, and he had to just, take care of both of us. It was very disruptive. And I went to see so many doctors. I went to see cardiologists, gynecologists, psychologists, and three different GPs, and none, a single one of them ever mentioned perimenopause. I was telling them, I have this, I have that. I can't sleep at night. I wake up sweating. I have heart palpitations. I have all these hot flashes. So I think it might be that. And they were like, no, no, you're too young. That's definitely not it. And they never mentioned perimenopause. So at one point, I was like, okay, they're not going to help me. So I better
Yeah.
start researching because I have to do something. I cannot continue going like this. And it took me a year, an entire year of researching, reading books, listening to podcasts that I discovered. And that's how I found out that I was on perimenopause. And I started incorporating into my lifestyle holistic practices. I started taking supplements, and I started practicing different things. And my life started getting better. And I started getting back to my old self and feeling good. But it took me a year, and it took me stop working, and I didn't have anybody to help me. So after I started feeling better, I decided this is it. I have to do something about this because there is definitely a gap in
Yeah.
somebody fill that gap, and I might as well just do it if I've learned so much about it. That's how it all started.
Wow. This is a journey. Yeah, I think so far your explanation has answered everything, the questions I have here for you. But this is an interesting question though. So what are some of the most common misconceptions about premenopause that you think women uh, encounter in their day-to-day activities?
Yeah, there's so many. I encounter misconceptions every day, and they come from my friends. They come from my family, like my cousins that are around my same age. I see these misconceptions also on social media, on podcasts, everywhere. I think the most common one is the age. Women don't think they're old enough because they're being told that they're too young. So you see women that are in their 40s already, and and this happened to me very recently. I was talking to a friend, and she was telling me about some health struggles that she's going through, and everything to me sounded like perimenopause. And I was just listening to her, and when she finished, I asked her, so how old are you? Because that everything you're telling me sounds like perimenopause. And she's like, I'm 42, so I don't think it's perimenopause. I was like, well, you've been in perimenopause for several years already without you even knowing it. So I recommended her to research, to research about it, and to bring the conversation with her doctors, because she had no idea. So that's one very, very common misconception is the age. Another misconception are the symptoms, because most people think that menopause without even talking about perimenopause, because there are lots of women who don't even know that perimenopause exists. So when
Yeah.
they talk about menopause, they think that it's only hot flashes and night sweats and maybe brain fog. But the truth is that there are over 40 symptoms that are linked to perimenopause. So without knowing it, you would only think that it's hot flashes and night sweats. Um, Another misconception that I've seen, and I saw this very recently as well, is that it's thought to last from 1 to 3 years. And that is very far from the truth, because perimenopause lasts up to 10 years. And I saw this in a presentation an event that I attended here at the CSW 69. And it was an endocrinologist, and on her slides, one of them was about menopause, and she mentioned perimenopause just very briefly, and that it lasted from 1 to 3 years. And I was like, wow. I mean, she's an endocrinologist and she's a woman. She should know. And so, yeah, those are I think, the three most common ones that I've seen. There are many more, but those are the most common ones that I've seen.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So, how can women advocate for themselves when seeking medical support for premenopausal related symptoms?
I would say arming themselves with knowledge as the best as they can, because I believe that knowledge is every woman's best friend, is their ally. They really need to learn. They have to be interested in getting to know their own bodies. It's amazing the amount of women who don't know how their body works, that they don't know how their cycle works. They just
With
think that
knowledge as they can, because I believe that knowledge is the best friend, is their ally. They
I
really
hear an
need to
echo. Do
learn.
you hear
They
that?
have to be interested in getting to know their own bodies. It's
I
amazing
hear
the
that.
amount of women who don't know how
Is
their
that
body
you, or
works.
is that coming
They
from
don't
my
know how
end?
their
Um, Sorry.
believe that knowledge is the best friend, is their ally.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I could hear some echoes. That's why I stopped.
Yeah. 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 You
Okay, a
can
little
keep
glitch. Okay.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I was saying, I believe knowledge is every woman's best friend. So the more women know about how their body works and about what happens during perimenopause, the better prepared they will be to go and have this conversation with their doctors, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to see a doctor and you're experiencing something, and all you can do is just try to explain what's happening, and you are
Mm-hmm.
faced with a no, that must be in your mind, or yeah, that has nothing to do with with a gynecologist, so you need to go to see another doctor, you might end up very confused, and many times you wouldn't even try going to ask the same question to somebody else. But if you know, because you've done your own research, or because you've been educated about it, you've read books, or you've listened to podcasts, or you, I don't know, are work along with somebody who can help you understand what is going on, then you're going to be well prepared to go and see a doctor and tell the doctor what's happening, what you're feeling. And if they say no, you're too young or whatever, you can say, well, you know what, I'm not that young, because perimenopause lasts 10 years and I'm already 40 something. So the more you know, the better prepared you will be.
Yeah. That's true. Wow. Okay. So, what role does nutrition, exercise, and mindfulness play in managing premenopausal symptoms?
They play a huge role, especially nutrition, because, and I didn't know much about this a couple of years ago, but in my research, I discovered a few doctors that I now follow. For example, there's Dr. Mindy Pels, and she specializes in intermittent fasting and nutrition for women in perimenopause. So I've learned a lot from her. And one of the things I've learned is that there are certain foods that will help the body produce the hormones that are lacking during a specific time during your cycle. Because a woman's cycle lasts for 30 days, right? So in certain days of your cycle, your estrogen lowers because the two, and I don't think I have mentioned this, but the two hormones that play a huge role in perimenopause are estrogen and progesterone. And these two hormones, they go up and down as if they were in a roller coaster. And it's like that all month long. And then again, it kind of resets and it starts over again the next month. And it goes on and on for years, go up and down, up and down. So there are certain foods that will help the body increase the amount of estrogen that it's being produced. And it's the same with progesterone. And there are certain practices like intermittent fasting, for example, that do well with progesterone or that don't do well with progesterone and that do well with estrogen and that don't do well with estrogen, if that makes sense. So nutrition
Yeah.
is very important. And when we start learning about it, we start eating better and eating in our favor so that what we eat is going to help us lower the impact of the symptoms that we might be experiencing at a certain moment. And exercise is the same thing. For example, when somebody suffers from anxiety, whatever type of anxiety, whether it's related to perimenopause or not, exercising is good because what triggers anxiety is a stress response in the body. So when you are under stress and you activate the fight or flight response in your body, which is a survival mechanism, your body starts producing the stress hormone cortisol, and it's accumulating in the belly area. It stays there. So you get on a fight or flight mode. So you're kind of on survival mode, even if you're not in danger. And that makes your body start producing adrenaline. When adrenaline goes into your blood, then you get anxiety. Because when you get adrenaline, adrenaline is meant to make you run and make you try to, run for your life or fight if you are in a dangerous situation. But if you are not and you're just sitting at home watching Netflix, and all of a sudden you get your stress hormones start pumping, and you start getting activated like that, the adrenaline is not going to go anywhere because you're sitting in a sofa, and then all that adrenaline is going in your bloodstream, and then you start feeling bad and having heart palpitations, and then you start getting anxiety. So exercise plays a huge role because it helps you release all those excessive stress hormones that are in your body at a certain moment. And the mindfulness is huge, 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 because when we work with our bodies as a whole and we are very, very intentional with what we're doing, it's going to play in our favor. For example, if we create a routine where in the mornings we wake up in the mornings and we set up time to do tapping, for example, or whatever stress management practice you follow, that is going to create a habit. And when you are in that habit, if for whatever the reason you start feeling anxious,
Yeah.
that is going to help you manage that. I'm not saying that it's going to be like, a magic wand that is going to completely eliminate the symptoms, but it helps a lot. It helps a lot. So all those three are very, very important to manage perimenopausal symptoms.
Okay, so we've got a comment on Facebook. So, says my experience was helped by reading Davina's Markle's book, Menopausing. I had such an early menopause, and the GP refused to believe me, just like you mentioned earlier on. And I was 43 when it was all done. I had to go private to get it later, as the GP said he couldn't give it to me as I had the menopause 4 years previously. So this was inaccurate. I now tell other women to insist, which I think is good, because you know your body, you know what you're going through. So if you go to the GP or you go to the doctor and they say no, you have to insist to tell them, this is what I'm going through, this is my
Mhm.
body. So I know when there are changes and when there are no changes. So you just have to, I know you are the professional, but I have the body, so I know what get to see. Yeah, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so what common life mistakes do women make that might be making their symptoms worse? Do you think, like you mentioned earlier, do you think is the dieting? Do you think is the non-exercising? So what are the common mistakes that women make that makes their symptoms get worse from 0 to 10, and then from 10 it drops to 9, and then from 9 it shoots to 20? What are the common lifestyle mistakes?
There are many and many factors that play a part, but in many times it's because they don't even know. One of them, for example, is not sleeping well. And I know that many women, when they're parents like me, I have a 9-year-old. Sleep deprivation starts as in the moment we become mothers. We're sleep deprived for about a year and a half when we're, tending to our babies. And then it changes, and now we have a toddler that keeps us up at night because maybe he's not sleeping well, so we wake up to try to get him to sleep. And then as they grow older, there are other worries that keep us up at night. But sleeping is one of the most important things we need to give priority. We need to go to sleep at a time that allow us to sleep at least 7 hours every night. And a lot of people don't do it. Sometimes I don't do it myself, not because I don't want to, but because I don't manage to. um, so trying to organize our lives in a way that most of the time we reach the amount of hours that we need to sleep, that is a good strategy. And
Yeah.
another strategy would be to stop all sort of screen watching in the evenings, because the blue light from screens, whether it's from our phones, the TVs, or the computers, they just mess up with our sleep rhythm, and it doesn't allow the natural melatonin that our body produces to be produced, and then we don't go to sleep at the time that we should be going to sleep. um, so sleep is one thing. The way I manage my own sleep, because when you are in perimenopause, sleeping can be very tricky, specifically for because of the night sweats and the hot flashes that we get in the middle of the night that wakes you up. And after you wake up and you have to get your PJs off because, oh my God, it's so hot. And then you try to go back to sleep and it's not the same. And the moment you are finally getting to sleep, and then again another hot flash or another sweat starts coming in. So what I do is that I take magnesium. Magnesium is very, very important for more than 300 different functions in the body, and one of them is sleeping. So I would really recommend everybody to talk to their physicians, of course, because before you start taking any type of supplements, you need to talk to your doctors.
Yeah.
But talk to your doctor about starting to take magnesium, which has been proven to help with sleep. And another thing is alcohol consumption, because when we are young, it's processed differently, and everyone is used to drinking a glass of wine or having a drink here and there. And unless you drink too much to the point that you get drunk, drinking is not going to really bother you pre perimenopause years. But when you get into the perimenopausal years, alcohol is not processed the same inside the body. The liver doesn't process it the same way. It takes twice as long to be processed. So, what ends up happening is that it disrupts your sleep, and it affects basically you need to decide, am I going to drink a glass of wine or do I want to sleep tonight? It gets up to that point in most of the women, but not all of them, because I have friends who are in their 50s and they drink wine and they don't have any problem sleeping. So it all
Yeah.
depends from woman to woman. But I know that alcohol consumption is one of those things that make symptoms worse. I know that before I understood this, and even after I understood this, I took some time, a couple of months, where I was like, okay, I'm going to have a glass of wine and see what happens. And sometimes it was that I would get heart palpitations in the middle of the night, or it would be that I would get really, really bad night sweats and hot flashes that would last up for 2 days after I drank the wine. So it's a thing that women need to see how it affects them. Something else is not paying attention to the symptoms that might be making the symptoms worse. Because if you
That
are
would be
feeling something and you're ignoring them, it's like you're not listening to your body. But of
yeah.
course, you don't know that it could be perimenopause because you don't even know perimenopause exists. Then it's a problem because you're gonna end up thinking that you're sick, and it's not that.
Yeah. So we've got an interesting question here. So do you know if there's a correlation between early menopause and neurodivergence? Because she's autistic and she's
Mhm.
got ADHD as well. So do you know if there's a correlation between the both of them?
The honest answer is I don't know because I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't think it does because a woman can be neurodiverse and have symptoms that are similar to those as perimenopause,
Yeah.
and you can have those symptoms in your 20s. That doesn't mean that you're in perimenopause. But I'm not really familiar with the symptoms that someone who's neurodiverse or
Yeah.
divergent, I'm sorry, go through. But the moment a woman the hormones start fluctuating because you're starting the transition, you're gonna get those symptoms regardless of whether you are autistic or whether you have ADHD. ADHD doesn't have anything to do with, I think, with the symptoms getting any earlier, in my opinion, or
Okay.
not having them at all, because they're
Okay.
gonna happen. You're gonna go from being fertile to stop being fertile,
Yeah.
regardless.
Okay. So how can women embrace premenopause as a transformative period rather than as a struggle? And then, so it's going to be two questions. So, you're a life change mentor, and I think that's what made me send you the invite. Like, okay, wow, so she's got the experience then. So, what mindset shift do you encourage women to make during the premenopause? Because there's a comment here saying she exercised daily, and so how do women embrace premenopause? Because it's difficult going from I can get pregnant, I can give birth to my kids, to then I can't get pregnant anymore. I'm in this stage and everything. So how do women embrace those transformative periods in their life?
Yes, that's a question that I like a lot because nowadays, because this topic is starting to, come up to the surface, it
Yeah.
sounds like something really negative. Most people, most women have have a bad experience tied to being in perimenopause, although it's not like that for everybody, and it doesn't have to be like that. So for someone who's lived a life without maybe being interested in personal development or without being interested in life transformation or without being interested in nutrition, being in perimenopause, then it's the perfect time to embrace those changes that are going to make her grow as a whole, because knowledge is valuable. It doesn't matter at what age we start learning, it's something that we're going to have and keep with us for the rest of our lives. and it's something that we can use to help others. So starting to learn about nutrition, starting to practice holistic practices, starting to exercise, those are changes. Like for someone who maybe was sedentary her whole life, incorporating, exercise or practices like yoga or Pilates, anything that that woman likes is going to be something new. And anything that we bring that is new and is positive is going to make us grow. The
Yeah.
same thing goes with doing research, for example. Maybe somebody is not in, a woman is not interested at all in on ever researching anything online. But when what happened to me, I'm very good at researching. It's actually something that I like to say that is one of my superpowers, because I'm really good at it. But I know that not every woman is like that. So let's say a
Yeah.
woman is not very inclined into doing research, but she needs to. She is at a point in her life where she needs to find answers, and then she starts researching, she starts learning, and she starts getting better at researching. That is going to make her grow.
Yeah.
So anything that you do that is going to make you grow positively is something that you should embrace. And in perimenopause, it's the perfect time, because you can bring in good nutrition. If you've been a woman who you're not very interested in, you don't really mind how you eat. You eat whatever you like without really thinking about it. But now that you know, and maybe that thing that I'm eating is not gonna make me feel so good tonight,
Yeah.
maybe I'm not gonna eat it anymore. I'm gonna switch to something else that is going to help me feel better. And those are the type of changes that I think we should embrace, women should embrace in perimenopause, and so that they can see this as a transformative uh, period rather than a struggle. And the mindset shifts, well, there are many, but I would say stop thinking that you're too young for it. You really need to stop. Like, women need to stop thinking, I'm too young. I don't think it's ever too young to learn about perimenopause. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that when I decided to create Perimenopause School, one of the things that I started being very passionate about was to bring this knowledge to high school, because I am a believer that this belongs in high school curriculum, and it should not be only taught to women, to girls. Men really need to know about this as well.
Yeah.
They teach these at school, boys are going to learn about perimenopause, and then they're going to be better prepared to understand what their mothers are going through when the time comes, what the women in their lives are going through, whether it's an aunt, a friend of their moms or their parents, their teachers. This knowledge is valuable for boys, and when they become men and they get married and they have a relationship, is going to prepare them to support the women in their lives. So this is
Yeah.
not something that women need to start learning when they hit perimenopause. This is something that needs to be learned from high school, so that when they start experiencing, if it's the case of a woman that start experiencing it earlier, then she's not going to be panicking about it, because
Yeah.
she's already learned about it in high school, and that empowers her.
Okay. So we have, the question I asked about the correlation between early menopause. So we have a comment from one of our viewers that asked the
Yes.
question. So she said it was hard to notice being premenopausal because the fight or flight is quite similar. So, yeah. And then one says, absolutely fantastic. I am with you on this.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
if
Well, let
uh,
me let me say something about the fight or flight. So fight or flight response is a survival mechanism
yeah,
that exists since the time when humans started existing.
mm,
And it's a mechanism that humans use to survive. So if you are in a threatening situation, your body starts producing the hormones that are going to make you either fight that threat or run away from it, or freeze, because that's another survival mechanism. You just freeze and you pretend you're dead, like the animals, they pretend they're dead, and then the let's say it's a I don't know, the predator comes and eats its it goes hunting, it bites the other animal. The other animal is not really dead, maybe it's just hurt, but it just lays down and plays dead. The lion, let's say, it's going to go back and get the lioness and the family, the babies, whatever, they to come and eat. But the other animal, in the meantime, has gotten up and left. So that's the fight or flees mechanism. And what it causes in humans, what it causes to us is our heart starts beating fast, our legs start shaking, we get all these tingling sensations, whether in the arms or in the legs, and our heart starts pounding really hard, and we start breathing or having difficulties breathing as well. So what we need to do is to lower those responses by
Mm-hmm.
knowing what is going on. So
Yeah.
if this is a symptom that when you are when you have ADHD, you know that it's related to your condition. When you are in perimenopause, if you know that you are prone to that, then you will kind of get used to, not get used to it, but know that if it comes, is because of the hormones that are fluctuating.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to make it difficult to understand or determine if it's one or another. But because that's not the only symptom, there are so many other symptoms. There are 40 different symptoms that probably she was experiencing without even knowing or relating those symptoms to perimenopause. That if she
Yeah.
had known, she would have known, oh yeah, it is perimenopause.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there was a sentence you made that the men in our lives should also be taught about premenopause. I totally agree with you. I think if there could be like a seminar where they teach men on premenopause and tell them this is what you should expect, this is what you should not expect. So it bridges the stigma and the gap the woman goes through in her home. So I think they would create an avenue to make anybody going through that phase to be comfortable and feel at home. Yeah, which I think is really, really good. So what is the funniest
I
or most
agree.
memorable? Yeah. What is the funniest or most memorable moment someone has shared with you about their premenopause experience?
Well, to be honest, I cannot remember anyone sharing something positive or memorable, but I can give you my own experience, which
Yeah.
is that my hair changed from straight to curly at 48 because of the hormones. Like I lived for 48 years of my life with straight hair, and now it's curly, like curly.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah,
strange.
it's yeah, it's the hormone. Estrogen does this.
I'm learning something new and interesting today. I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. So if you could create a premenopausal survival kit, what are the three must have items you did include in a premenopausal survival kit? Like the way we have the first aid kits in the hospitals in our homes. So what are those three menopausal survival kits?
Well, the first one, I would say, I would have this book. I totally recommend it. It's by Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and the name is the Menopause Brain, and it explains everything that happens in a woman's body beautifully and very easy to understand. It has lots of scientific lingo in some of the chapters, depending on what she's explaining. But this is the book that,
Can you lift Lisbeth? Can you lift the book up again so I'll see the author and then I'll put it on the comments.
I don't know if
Um,
you can see it.
yeah. So
I don't know if it's because
Moscone.
it's mirroring. I don't know if you can see it the right
Yeah, I
way, but
can. Yeah,
you can.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. So the second one.
The second one would be definitely supplements that have rhodiola. Rhodiola is a supplement that helps regulate the nervous system, and it helps with anxiety and the heart palpitations. And that, for me, is something that I would totally have. So any perimenopause supplement that has rhodiola in it, that would be the other thing that I would have on my survival kit. And the other one, I think it would be essential oils. I'm very passionate about essential oils. I use them for everything, and there are blends of essential oils that actually help fight perimenopausal symptoms, like for the hot flashes or the anxiety and the stress. So I would have a blend of essential oils that works good for me. So those three things: the essential oils, the supplements with rhodiola, the perimenopause supplements that have rhodiola on it. There are so many other ingredients that help, but rhodiola, it would be the most important one for me. And Lisa Moscani's book.
Okay. Thank you so much. I just want to put them up on our social media page. So, especially the book, so people get to have access to it and purchase it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Please, 1 minute. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, if you had to give one sentence of encouragement to a woman struggling with premenopause today, what would that be?
I would tell her that she's not alone. That's the first thing, because this can be a very lonely period if you don't have the right support.
Yeah.
So I would say you're not alone, and that with the right knowledge and the right tools and the right support, you can take back, your life, and you can take back control of your body and get yourself to feel like your old self again.
Interesting. So we are talking about premenopause unfiltered, we are breaking the silence and we are raising awareness. So how do we make this into a global stage? How do we make this to get people to be aware of premenopause? Because we have to move from street to street. How do you intend to do that? As are you going to use your platforms to be able to get people to give the knowledge out there and get more people to know that there is something like this and you need to talk about it?
Yes, definitely. I would say having this conversation openly as much as you can. I find myself talking about perimenopause all the time with as many people as I can. Wherever the subject comes up, I just, get on talking about it, talk about it openly, um, without fear, of what are they going to say, what are they going to think about me. uh, I will definitely use my platforms, my social media accounts, opportunities like this. Hopefully I will have more opportunities to get on more podcasts to talk about the importance of, raising awareness and opening the knowledge for other people, those who are less fortunate to have, the means to find the information that they need to feel better.
Yeah.
uh, right now the CSW 69 has been
Yeah.
immensely helpful, because on every event that I've participated where they've talked about women's health, I've
Mm.
talked. Like I've been, I think, the one that raises her hand all the time to talk about it. Um, and of course, Perimenopause School is going to be dedicated to that once the platform is fully created. Remember that it's in the early stages, and there's a lot to be done and a lot of information to upload and so many things that to put together. But in the meantime, the conversations are going to be had. I'm going to have those conversations on social media, on podcasts, and with whomever wants to talk about it, they can always reach out and ask questions. I will be very happy to answer.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for using your platform to break the stigma. I think It's actually is is something, how do I put it? Because it's quite difficult being in a public gathering with your friends and then you're talking about premenopausal symptoms. Some people will look at you as if you're crazy or what's going on. And yeah, because they expect those symptoms to start when you're 50, when you're in your mid 50s or early 60s, but the world is changing. So if people have the information they have, if people have access to the information you have, I think it will help a lot of women to get better. Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, yeah. So if someone wants to reach out to your school and seek for your help on this premenopausal phase, how do we go about it?
They can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. My
Yeah.
handle is Lizabeth Leach, like my name all together with no spaces on it. So that's Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, but it's I'm sorry about that. It's Lizabeth underscore Leach on Instagram. And then
Okay.
Perimenopause School is Perimenopause School all together on Instagram.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming to WELLSPIRE Podcast. And thank you to our viewers for joining us for this session. And get ready for our next talk because we are going to be talking about pregnancy loss and how to deal with it. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, and have a lovely day.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day too. Bye.